All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and get started now. Where's Mayor Don? Mayor Don, we're going to start with Mayor Don and just with a welcome, and then I'm going to step back in and we'll have the meeting going.
Thanks. I'm going to keep it really quick because you didn't come here to listen to me. Welcome. The folks here have given us tremendous support. When you get a chance, thank them. I cannot.
Let's do that now.
Absolutely. Absolutely. The communication is just phenomenal. As I mentioned to them some time earlier today, you can tell it's not their first rodeo. So that said, I'm going to get out of here and give it back to Mike. Mike, thank you.
Thank you. And, you know, you all have been tremendously supportive of the firefighters, and we've been passing it on constantly, and we really appreciate it. You guys are wonderful, so thank you so much. So we're going to get started today. I'd just like to welcome you all here. I'd like to thank you all for attending. I know you're anxious or at least ready to hear the information about what's going on out there. I can tell you right now, isn't it great to have clear air? Yeah. That was nothing on my part. I didn't do that. Okay. But it sure is nice. This is the plan for tonight. We're going to hear a fire update from 4 of our speakers. Then we're going to speak with some of our agency administrators are going to speak, and then our IC is going to speak. And for those who aren't familiar with the language, that's our incident commander. He's the person running the team that is basically taking a delegation from the forest to manage this fire. After that, we're going to have questions and answers, and one of our PIOs will have a microphone. So we're going to just have you raise your hand if you have a question, and they will find you in the audience. And I just want to ask you to please speak into the microphone because we are broadcasting on Facebook Live right now, and this is being recorded. So if it goes through the microphone, we're going to have a better chance for our virtual audience to hear that. After that, Q&A, we'll go ahead and close it up. And when we close it up, I just want to encourage you all, like I already have, we have tables with materials on either side here. And our agency administrators, our incident people, they're here. If you want a little one-on-one time, feel free to ask questions. We have maps on the board here. We have maps on the board here. If there's anything that's unclear to you, we want you to walk away with it clear. So please don't hesitate to ask. We're here. That's why we're here. So we're going to start off with a weather update with our instant meteorologist, Sean Smith.
Oh. All right, good evening, everyone. I'm incident meteorologist Sean Smith, and thanks for coming out today. What I'd like to say is the job of an incident meteorologist is to provide weather information to the wildland firefighters, the incident management team, and one of the products that we issue to the wildland firefighters is this general weather outlook, or what we like to call the weather matrix. We issue this to them once a day, and it provides information on what the weather is like over the fire. And we use a really neat 3-colored system here, and the different colors indicate the conditions that are favorable for either extreme fire in red, high fire behavior in yellow, or green is conditions favorable for only low to moderate fire behavior. Now, it's been pretty windy, obviously very dry the past couple of days. Today's actually day 4 of a red flag warning that we've had over the area, and news for tomorrow is that we're going to have hopefully one final red flag warning issued over the area. What is a red flag warning? It means that critical weather conditions are critical for the rapid spread of wildfires, and that includes gusty to strong winds, very dry conditions, and an unstable atmosphere. So for tomorrow, we're expecting very dry conditions. We have relative humidity down to around 11% at its lowest, and then even beyond then, actually relative humidity trending even drier than that. The winds tomorrow are going to be rather strong again, probably a little stronger than today. We're looking for about 30 miles per hour out of the south-southwest, maybe gusting up to around 45 miles per hour. So probably a little similar to what we saw on Sunday, maybe a little lighter than that. And then the good news, though, is by the time we get into Thursday, we'll start to see the winds really starting to slacken off. Of course, they'll slacken off tomorrow night, but they'll pick back up like they do every afternoon, just not as high on Thursday. And then certainly by Friday into the weekend, maybe we'll just have some light breezes in the afternoon and pretty light to calm winds in the evening. So those conditions, while it's very dry, having the lighter winds are a little more favorable for the team to do their work on the fire. And I think that's about all I have. I can take questions at the end if you have any. Thank you very much.
Okay, good evening. My name is Robert Burnside. I'm a fire analyst for the incident. And just want to talk to you a little bit about what this fire is doing. And if the camera's okay with it, I'm going to scoot over to this side so I can talk to the map a little bit. So what this fire did, I'm going to give you a real brief history. A lot of you are probably fairly aware, but it got started up here in kind of a timber, some of the old timber area that didn't burn from the Lost Conscious fire. And then once it got going, we got some big north winds, and it made this big push to the south. Got out into the Lost Conscious fire scar, and then continued to use just terrain and fuels available to keep spreading kind of in all directions and cause a lot of problems out there. And you guys know what it looks like, but from a fuels perspective, what's out there mostly is there's a grass and shrub that's came back over the last decade and is fairly tall out there. And then all those dead trees have been fallen, and they're just jackstrawed out there, trees everywhere. And normally, in normal weather conditions, they don't burn real great. They smolder and they skunk around a little bit. And so once the grass goes through, usually at a fairly low rate of spread, pretty easy to stop. But what's happened is, as you guys know, it's very, very dry out here. And, yep, seems to work. Okay, very dry out here. And to the point that those logs that normally just hold fire and smolder, they're burning very, very hot. And as they burn that hot and they get the brush on fire, and it carries and it allows it to run through the brush. And so it's a lot different than normally when we deal with fire scars. It's really almost its own fuel type that we haven't experienced very often. And so that's what it's been doing. And then for the last 4 days, we've got these heavy winds coming out of the southwest, and it's really pushing on this fire. And you can see all the fire growth that's happened the last few days is mostly up in this area. And that's why it's just had that constant wind at its back. And so those logs I was talking about, they spot and they throw spots out and forward. And we're seeing it spot up in this area anywhere from a half a mile to a mile out ahead of itself. So it spots out, it gets into a new canyon, it burns for a while, it hits some rock, it can't get through it, so it hangs up. Finally, it gets another spot out of, and so that's how it's been traveling, and that's why it's so, we call it a dirty burn. It's really spotty. There's areas that have burned really hot, and there's other areas where it's just kind of bouncing around, burning through those logs. It's made it very difficult to contain, very difficult to predict. It's a difficult situation out there that the firefighters are dealing with. So to talk a little bit about, more specific about the fire, kind of what it's been doing, what it is doing, what it's going to do. We'll start back here in Alpha Zulu, and you see this black area. That's what they call a contained area. So it's not actively progressing there anymore. They do still see smokes, especially interior. Those still have potential to flare up and cause problems, but not a lot of fire activity back here. As we come around the north side, this is Highway 4 right here. And so all this stuff here is still on fire. It's out in that fire scar, and it's doing just what I said, but most of that's backing fire. The wind's kind of pushing it back into itself. So it just keeps slowly backing its way down around the hill and down towards Highway 4. And that's going to continue to do that as long as this system persists and we keep getting these winds. As we come around the top, this was a burnout done several days ago, and not a lot of fire activity in that, and so I'm just going to kind of jump over it and talk about this area. This, if you're familiar with this, so this is Highway 4, and this is the 289 road. This has been what's really burning the last few days, and doing just what I said. That 40, 50 mile an hour wind is jumping and spotting, and it keeps moving in there a mile and a half a day. The good news is, with this being the last of that wind, hopefully things slow down in there. And suppression will talk about what they're doing, but without suppression, this will keep burning north and south along Alamo Canyon, if you're familiar with that. And then if it gets into Frijoles Canyon, which is right here, it's wanting to try and get into here and wanting to push up to the north, up towards Highway 4. That's what the fire wants to do if firefighters are unsuccessful stopping it. As we're coming around further south, this out here is continuing to burn. It's going to keep finding areas to move to the east and southeast and keep flanking around. As we get on further south, this area here, it kind of rocked out for us. It got into some area where it can't burn. It can't get enough heat going to get going again. So it's pretty well hung up. And that stays true all the way to the south. This funny looking thing here, there was cut some stringers of timber that didn't burn in the Las Conchas fire. And so what it did is it burned all the way down that timber, got into this area, was able to get going, and then it burned back up these timber stringers. But pretty well, this is rocked out, and suppression has held it to where it doesn't have a lot of potential anymore to go very far. As we continue coming around the south end, there's still quite a bit of active fire in the south end. And right now, they're not able to do a lot with it just because of the wind conditions. There's a lot of people in here. Ops will talk about what all's going on here. But as far as fire perspective, what this is doing is it just keeps backing down the hill towards that 266 road. It finds opportunities. It finds fuel. It burns kind of east and west across here. Gets little places to run, and then it just keeps backing. But mostly it's very low intensity fire. There's still some pretty good pockets of timber, and it's just backing down through those fairly low rate of spread, and that's all being monitored all the time and worked on. As we come up this west side, things look really good in here. They've been working on this for a long time. It's not contained yet because there's still enough heat. They can't be sure that it's not going to get out, but there's not a lot of fire activity, very little progression. It's just kind of held up there due to the suppression actions. So that's kind of the long short version of what the fire is doing and kind of what we expect it to do the next couple of days. And so with that, I'm going to pass it off.
Good evening. My name is Jill Webster, and I'm with the Wildland Fire Air Quality Response Program. And we are a cadre of air quality specialists that are assigned to wildfires to provide you with daily smoke outlooks. And some of you may have been getting these outlooks off of the website or off the Facebook page. That's great. They're also on the tables as you walked in, and it's the handout that looks like this. And the outlook is based on something called the Air Quality Index. And the Air Quality Index is simply a way of letting you know how unhealthy the air quality is going to be based on your sensitivities. So right now, we would assign a color code of green because the air quality is quite good right now. So there's generally no problem with air quality for anyone when it's like this. As the air quality index starts to get more red, orange, maroon, then that's when we expect air quality to be unhealthy, and that's when you really should start thinking about taking some actions to protect yourself. And so I have another handout that I'll have on each of the tables as you leave with some low cost and no cost things that you can do to protect yourself from wildfire smoke. Sometimes it's as simple as just taking it easy, because your exposure is basically how much you're breathing in and for how long. So if it's smoky outside, that's not a good time to get out and do yard work. So we're just providing this information so that you can use it, hopefully use it to plan your day. And if you can access Outlook online, we have each community broken down by morning, noon, afternoon, and night. And as you all well know, sometimes smoke settles in at night, and if we think it's going to do that, then we'll put that on the Outlook as well. So I am here. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. Thank you.
Good evening. Rich Harvey, Incident Commander, and filling in for Jeff Sherber, Operations Section Chief, because he's out doing what Ops Section Chief should be. He's out working on the fire. So I'm going to give you a quick walk around the fire and tell you what the firefighters are doing out there today. So we start here at Alpha Zulu. That's where the black line is. Black line is containment line. That means we are confident that that line is in place. It will hold the fire's edges down to it, and everything from the black in as far as we feel is a threat has been mopped up. So it's a really good thing. Our objective really is to grow the black all the way around the fire, but we're working on patience at some times. So when you come across here, our plan is to hold it along this line. The fire's up in here and we are letting it back down to us, right? A backing fire is very friendly to the natural resources, right? We could come along here, light this off and let the fire run up, but that's not good for the natural resources. So sometimes our guys have to be really patient in order to accomplish the overall objective, which is to put the fire out, contain it, but also leave as much green, healthy stuff behind as humanly possible. So that's what this is. It's in what we call kind of a patrol status. We have resources assigned up in here, and if we get trouble spots, they'll come up there and deal with them, try to keep the fire low intensity, and let it come down to the road. Moving further in Alpha towards Division Foxtrot, this part of the fire right here has already backed down to the road, and we're holding it at the road. We just don't have all the mop-up completed in here, right? We're not going into this yet, but this is a really solid barrier along here. You'll probably see it turn black in the next day or two. Coming around Foxtrot through Alamos Pass here, this is also fire down to the edge and held, stopped, not crossed it, not giving us any problems in the last few days at all. Moving down here, the 289 road, this was one of our primary containment features. We wanted to stop, obviously, southwest winds, right? The fire's going to push this way towards all this kind of stuff. So we need to stop the eastern spread of the fire. Southwest winds make it very, very difficult for us. We had some good progress on 289, and right in here is where it jumped a couple, 3 days ago, right? That's been a problem for us. It's spotted all the way out here towards Los Alamos Canyon or Alamos Canyon. Today, this is the 287 road. We've got crews working in on the 287 road, and what they did is they were supported by an air tanker drop or two. As the fire came up out of the canyon and started to move this way, we have a road, we had engines on the road, we had hand crews on the road, type 1 hotshot crews, and we put some retardant in there. And that gave them a little anchor point, as we would call it, right? They had a place where the fire was no longer moving east. And now what they're doing is they're moving both directions from that spot, trying to tie that eastern spread off. When I talked to ops before I got up here, they're making good progress. We haven't really lost any ground at all today. I mean, there'll be some acreage that'll show from burning stuff out. But this part, we stopped it here at 289. We're trying to figure out how to connect these dots back. And then they've also got some progress on this slop over. And we're trying to tie this part all back into the main road and stop that eastern spread. So the crews are feeling pretty good about it. The weather's not helping, but we're gaining confidence that we're making some progress there. Moving further on down here, this is been hung up in Division Mike. This is still hung up in the rocks. It's really not moving on us, but we continue to reinforce this line, and we're just going to wait. If we get an opportunity to go direct, once these guys are done over here, we can start moving them down and minimize that rate of spread or that create edge there. But for right now, it's staying here. We're ready to catch it here, and we don't feel the need to chase it. We don't have enough troops to go do that. On the southern end, which you guys are probably most concerned about this part, at least the audience that's here in person, right? It's the same kind of thing. The heat is dissipated. We're letting this come down to the 266 road, right? Same deal, patience, right? We want the natural resources to be the best that they can out there. And if we were to say, come along and light from the road and let it run up, we could do that. We have a 50-mile-an-hour wind at our back, it'd go right up the hill. Tie it up and we'd be done in a day or two. But that's not the right thing to do. patience is the right thing to do, and try to make sure that this is all healthy for us as best we can do. You can see some dozer lines and some check lines that we've got just in case it ever tries to make a push. We're ready for it. We've got, in firefighting terms, they sometimes call it the catcher's mitt, right? If the fire starts to go that way, we've built our catcher's mitt and we're ready for the fire to move in this direction. But it's kind of sitting here. It's not moving a lot. You can see this perimeter has not changed. This few little spots here, and down south we're almost to the line. As we move around through Oscar, same kind of deal. They're just kind of waiting, watching, ready to do something if the fire makes us do it, but we're content to let it come to us on friendly terms for the environment. As we come around the corner here, this is the spot. This is an old growth Doug First stand that we let the fire back down to the road from. And now we're just kind of watching it. We're keeping pace with it all the way down. If it touches the road and starts to be a problem, we'll do a little firing in there, just enough to keep it from being able to push our line. Right? We don't want it to push. We want to just let it back down where we can, and we want it, they call it square it up, right? And you want to just not give it an opportunity to run at you. You just want to keep pace with it so that it's squared up. And then this same thing here. This is good line. I know Cerber got in trouble the other night for saying it's secure, right? So it's secure, all right? It's not quite black yet, which means it's contained, but we're liking that it's just sitting there, and we're getting crews in to start knocking down some of the hot spots and trying to turn this flank, at least down to here, black. So that's kind of a quick overview. I think the guys are doing a really good job out there. Guys and girls, it's a collective term for firefighters, right? They're doing a real good job out there and making good progress.
Okay, we're going to get into our agency administrator. We're going to start with Rich Herrera from Cochiti Pueblo. We'll have a couple. Pete, I'm sorry. I've got so many Riches around. Pete Herrera, and Pete is also doing another function. He is working as one of our resource advisors on the fire. So, I am so sorry.
Good evening, everybody. Just want to welcome everybody taking the time out of your evening to come to this meeting. I was delegated by governors to share a few words, send their sincere apologies. They've been tied up in a tribal council meeting today. As I was introduced, my name is Everett Herrera. Everybody knows me as Pete, and I'm a resident here in the community at the lake. I'm a tribal member at the Pueblo. I'm also a former lieutenant governor and a proud member of Cochiti Fire Department, the Bear Crew. Yeah. So I think, first of all, the message from the governor was, to reiterate safety. Safety is our number one priority. Your safety, the men and women with boots on the ground, is a safety issue. So I just want everybody to be cognizant of traffic that's going, to leave it at bare minimum on Kurani Road, the Cochiti Highway. That's just for everyone's safety. And a big thanks to the incident management. They've been picking up the pieces really well. The division leads have been putting that puzzle back together in this transition stage. So I just want to thank them. It's a learning curve for them, but I think they're doing well. I think a big applause needs to go to your fire department. Without Chief Andrew Chavez, the knowledge and experience that he carries and is able to understand and disseminate information to governors, leadership, to make the sound decisions on behalf of both communities as we want to all work together as one. I mean, that's our main goal. Safety, that's our priority. So again, I mean, we need to really thank the men and women with boots on the ground. They've sacrificed families, family events, graduations, Mother's Day, birthdays, As a young man growing up, they taught me that the word thank you carries a lot of weight. And sometimes that's all you need to make that extra push, walk that extra mile, go above and beyond. So I leave you with that. I hope that everybody is well, in good health. And then, you know, there's other communities in the surrounding areas that are dealing with fire. They've lost homes, they've lost a lifetime of hard work. And I hope the spirits guide, give them that capability of resilience to rebuild. And from the both communities, Cochiti Lake, Cochiti Pueblo, thoughts and prayers go out to them. So I leave you with that. Thank you, and you all be safe.
Good evening, everybody. Brian Riley, District Ranger on the Hammons Ranger District. I was here last week and felt a little different then. It feels a little bit better now. I don't want to keep on knocking on wood, but it feels a little bit better. And I know you guys have been through a lot this week, so thank you for being patient as well. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your continued interest. This is, as has been indicated, it's a challenging fire for us. It's not one that was expected. Typically, as was also mentioned, we get a fire into that burn scar and it doesn't really go anywhere, particularly this time of year. And, you know, started in April, here we are in early May, and we continue to have conditions we've really never seen before, ever. Not only in April and May, but even in June. Some of the conditions we're seeing are just unheard of. So I do appreciate the patience. Rich, our IC, mentioned patience, that they're having to practice, and we appreciate your patience. They're practicing patience in order to protect natural resources. They're also protecting their people. The safety of the firefighters working in these conditions is tough. It's really tough. And if the wind comes up, they have to pull back. They can't stay in front of the fire. They have to pull back. They have to fight it when they can. And it's amazing what they've been able to do over the last since the fire started, but even the last couple of days with the wind, they've made good progress. And we've got hopefully no more than one more day of wind, and then maybe we'll really make some good progress on it after tomorrow. I wanted to mention that we are still in stage 2 fire restrictions, and that means no campfires anywhere on the forest. It means no chainsaw use anywhere on the forest between 10 and 6 p.m., 10 a.m. and 6 p.m. We are in the process. We have made the decision, our forest supervisor and the forest leadership team has made the decision to go into forest closure. So the entire Santa Fe National Forest, although a good chunk of it's already closed, a good chunk of the Hammons district is closed, and of course Pecos, Las Vegas, because of what they have going on over there, they've got the entire district closed. As a forest, we're going into closure before we get to Memorial Day. We know what kind of visitation we get, and we love for people to visit the forest. But right now, with our conditions, it's just not possible. So we will be going into closure. It'll protect the rest of the forest, western portion of the Hammons district, the Cuba district, the Espanola district, and the Coyote district. So there's still a lot of land out there, and they've got the same conditions that we do. So we need to make sure and protect it. So you'll see that we go into closure. It is a process for us. It takes longer than people would imagine, but hopefully within the next week or so, we should be in closure. Okay? So keep an eye on that. I'll mention also that we also have people preparing already for burned area emergency response. That means people looking at where we had severe burning areas and what do we need to do to make sure that we can have some mitigation in those areas and not have another emergency, once the rains start. We know what happened after the Las Conchas fire. We're going to try to get on it as soon as we can to avoid some of those impacts, post-fire impacts we call them, once we get rain. And where we have roads that we need to protect, things like that. We've mentioned, you've heard several times, safety, and we're just going to keep preaching it. From our perspective, on the Santa Fe National Forest and on behalf of the Santa Fe National Forest. I appreciate that the team has kept safety at the forefront, and that's what we ask for as the forest and as agency administrators. We want that to continue. So sometimes people ask why haven't you put the fire out yet? Well, this is a hard fire to put out, and we're going to stay safe putting it out. And with these winds, I just said that it's just really difficult. So I'll say it one more time, and I'll be open for questions later if anybody has any questions for the district. But thank you very much, and thank you for your patience.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Jorge Silva Bañuelos. I'm the superintendent at Valles Caldera National Preserve, and I'm serving as the agency administrator for the National Park Service for both Valles Caldera and Bandelier National Monument. I think since we saw each other last when we had this public meeting here, and by the way, this is my favorite public meeting location. It's beautiful, so thank you for having us. Since we were here last, the fire did make some runs into Valles Caldera, just into the southeast corner here on the mountainside called Rabbit Mountain. But the firefighters did a really excellent job to do some controlled burns in this area, tie it into the roads, and probably saved the fire from spotting over into the Valle Grande. And once it gets into those grasslands, the Las Conchas fire, at least, that helped it move north. So at least for now, we're feeling pretty confident about that area. Now we're starting to see the fire move a little bit closer to Bandelier National Monument. And obviously there's a number of different values at risk in Frijoles Canyon and throughout some of these areas. One of the roles that we have as agency administrators is to identify the values at risk throughout this landscape. And those values can be homes, for example. They can be sensitive habitat for threatened and endangered species. They can be cultural sites, archaeological sites, and this entire area is a cultural landscape for a number of American Indian tribes and pueblos. There's also structures both in Valles Caldera and in Bandelier that we're trying to protect, and we've had fire structure protection specialists look at those areas and look at how they can protect those areas if the fire does make its way in that direction. But one thing that I've been very pleased with this, the last fire team that's been here and the current incident management team that's here, is they've really taken to heart a lot of the messaging that we've provided about how important this landscape is to a lot of the Native American peoples in this area. A few days ago, they held a 2-hour listening session where all of the different pueblos in the area were invited to speak and share their concerns. And Cochiti Pueblo's resource advisors have been working hand in hand with this fire team since the beginning to identify areas of concern and helping to guide the fire crews on ways to manage this fire in a respectful and sensitive way to the landscape. So I've been very pleased with that. We will be continuing to monitor how this fire progresses. The National Park Service is also recognizing those values at risk that are beyond our borders, especially in the Los Alamos direction, Santa Clara Pueblo, and we're supporting efforts to try to help hold the New Mexico State Route 4 area as best we can to hopefully keep the fire from moving beyond our boundaries into those other values at risk. So we'll keep updating you as we progress on this stuff, but we really thank you for your support, and I'll be around for any questions you have. Thank you.
How's everybody doing today? My name is Lawrence Crane. I'm the acting district forester for the Bernalillo district of New Mexico State Forestry. My job was basically to help the team do whatever. I'm sounding board, one person contact for our offices in Santa Fe. So if they need, like Black Hawk helicopters, I helped, make the phone call to make that happen. I keep an eye on the costs. I've also got a lot of history out here. I lived through Cerro Grande with a 9-month pregnant wife when we got evacuated. I spent 40-some days on Las Conchas. I spent some time on Thompson Ridge, Cajete. I also have been out here working in northern New Mexico since 1986, so I got a lot of local knowledge. My job technically is supposed to put federal money on the ground, but when fire pops up, I'm the guy they send out here to meet with the team and talk to them and keep an eye out for private land, making sure that structures that survived the Las Conchas fire are being protected, which both teams have done a hell of a job on that. So good kudos to both teams on that. It's pretty hard to go through Las Conchas, have your house survive, and then have something happen because of this one. We're making sure that doesn't happen. Keep an eye on a lot of things. I don't know if you guys, how many of you were here last week, but you probably saw me doing this a lot. I used to be an engine boss up until about 2 years ago, and one of the things I was always taught, look up, look down, look around. Is one of the safety things we look at, because sometimes stuff falls out of the tree just whenever it wants to. So that's one of the safety things that I've learned. So that's why I was looking up, just thought maybe you thought I was weird or something, but I'm not. But safety on this fire has been excellent. Very, very minor things, mostly people that got hot spots on their boots and stuff like that. So it's been a good job there. So if you guys need anything, I'm here to talk about whatever the state forestry's job is in this fire, but it's mainly to keep an eye on the private land, make sure that we rehab the private land if there was dozers built, hand lines, stuff like that, and kind of be a contact between myself and the resource mobilization plan people that are here, Cochiti Lake, Sandoval County, and those folks. Thank you.
Good evening, Rich Harvey, IC again. This time I'm going to talk about what ICs do instead of what Ops does. One of the things when you're incident management team, right? Most of this team, which is called the Great Basin team, so we're from the Great Basin, Idaho, Nevada, I'm from Nevada, Utah, Arizona, some folks. And when we're driving towards the fire, we start building situational awareness, right? And usually people think of situational awareness in terms of the fire, right? Where it's at, what it's doing, what's the fuel type, what's the weather. We call the FMO out there, we call the team that's out there before us. We start gathering all this huge amount of situational awareness so that when we hit the ground, we can hit the ground running. And as an IC, one of our jobs is to gain situational awareness about not the fire, but the people. Because the fire impacts people. That's why we're here. It impacts natural resources. And interestingly enough, on this fire, for example, agency administrators, you just saw them come through, right? What are they? They're the guys that have land, ownership, stakes in that stuff. And there's 7 of them that signed the delegation of authority to our team. And we have to learn what each and every one of those agencies values most of what's going on out there. But one thing I also learned out here is that you can't see it on the map, but there's a whole bunch of things like 7 pueblos that surround this piece of land. And to them, it's an ancestral homeland full of treasures and culture and plants and everything that they want. And so early on, we're like, oh, we got it. We got 7 agencies here. Now we got these guys. Then you got, why do we do public meetings? Because people matter, right? You guys have a vested interest in this stuff. And trying to bring all that in to the planning process and figure out the best way for us to attack this fire is incredibly complicated, because not everybody agrees on the right course of action, right? Everybody has a different opinion of the value of something or this, or they have an opinion, if I move this way, that's because it's Los Alamos. No, I move that way because the fire's going that way, right? And we want to keep the people in front of the fire. Well, you're not doing anything down here. Well, yeah, we're being patient. We explain that. We hope you can be patient with us too as we're trying to work through that. And, another example, and I got asked to mention this, so I'm glad I remembered to do it. You just heard the Forest Service say they're in stage 2 restrictions up there. Awesome. This pueblo, Cochiti, I had to work on pronouncing that. I hope I got it right. Cochiti is in stage 3, right? That's what I heard. Stage 3 restrictions in the Cochiti Pueblo. So as we're messaging that stuff across, it's really different. we use common language. Ready, set, go. That should apply to you guys. Ready, set, go. You know what that means, right? In some places, ready, set, go, red is ready. In some places, green is ready, right? I had to think of a traffic light, but ready, set, go means the same to everybody. And we have to articulate where we're at. I think it was last night, yeah, a long time ago. Last night in Los Alamos, I got asked a question about the evacuations in Cochiti. And I'm a genius. I just learned how to say that word. And I'm thinking it's down here, and I'm going, I don't think we have anybody evacuated down there. I didn't know that this is Cochiti Mesa, and up here there were some people evacuated. So I apologize for the errors in my answers last night, because part of it is this learning team. I mean, we've been here 4 or 5 days. Thank you for the red flags every one of those days, right? But as the ops people and all of our team are learning this fire, I guess the team in general is learning the people and the natural resources and trying our best to manage all those conflicting, sometimes conflicting, often in alignment ideas and turn them into an action plan that gets this fire to where it needs to be out, rehabbed, and back producing the benefits that y'all came here for. So thank you very much, and we'll get on to the question parts.
All right, so we are going to get into questions, and the answers are official fire information. So, and that's what we're here to give you. So, a few other things, places to get official fire information before we move on to that. How many people have been watching the INSI website? Raise your hand. Okay, that is updated by PIOs in our office off of official fire information and briefings every day. So that is official. Also, there is a Facebook page for this fire called Cerro Pelado Fire Information. How many people here are not Facebook account holders? Guess what? You can still look at that page, okay? You don't have to be an account holder of Facebook to look at that page. The settings are set so you can take a look. And there's some very good info on that. We have Twitter. And then, of course, you heard Brian say that the pending closure of the forest. I just want to recommend that everybody keep an eye on the Santa Fe National Forest website. And then finally, the Sandoval County Emergency Management uses the program called Code Red, right? How many people are familiar with that? Okay, that's our job as citizens when we're out there. When I'm home, I'm signed up for the alert system in my county, and we need to be signed up because that gives us the greatest time to respond to the current emergency that's going on. So I just want to make you aware of all those, wanted to refresh your memory if you were. We're going to get on with questions and answers, and I just want to ask you all to please just, if you have a question, raise your hand. PIO Pete has the microphone, and he will come, and please be patient for him. Here's a lady right over here, Pete. And we'll go ahead and do that.
I was wondering, how did this fire start? Do we know that?
It remains under investigation. Who asked the question? Over here. Yeah, we want to know also. I think we should probably get the report soon, but we haven't received the investigation yet. So.
Yes. Hello. I'm a teacher, that's why I'm wearing a mask, so I have to keep myself protected. Anyways, you're talking about cultural sites and all that, and I'm wondering how many natives from Jemez, Cochiti, Santa Clara, San Alfonso, do you have with you when you go out into the field to help the firefighters know what is going on with certain artifacts they come across, because there are a number of artifacts out there in the mountains that are sacred to all the pueblos, and I just wonder if you take any of the natives with you.
Good afternoon, everybody. So I can answer that question. We've emphasized as local cooperators from the very beginning with the Forest Service and all the agency administration to get the local tribes involved. They have been involved since the first day. Cochiti Pueblo has assigned two firefighters as cultural resource officers, advisors. They're from Cochiti Pueblo. They volunteer for our department, and so there are boots on the ground and representatives from most of the tribes, and or they have some sort of involvement in that.
Yes, we've all seen the planes and the helicopters and the guys doing great water scooping. Just wondering, where are they dumping the water? What area? Yeah, I know.
That's a great question. You know, and the answer is a little bit tougher than the question. It kind of depends on where the highest priority need is. Sometimes we have planned things where we'll get them into cycles to, like, for example, reinforce Highway 4 with retardant as we're expecting the fire to get there. The scoopers, we like to use those more where, as just mentioned, the cultural resources, right? We want to keep retardant out of anything that has value as a cultural site. So we won't use retardant in those areas. So we'll use the scoopers for that. And then we have the helicopters. Type 1s are the big ones, like the Chinooks and stuff. They carry about 1,500 gallons, and they're really for close-in ground support of the troops. So they can knock the heat out of an area, so the firefighters can get in there 1 foot in the black, 1 foot in the green, and make some progress. So it really depends on where it is. Usually you would think that most of our aircrafts are out here where the fire's moving the most. But occasionally we'll come down here, right? I said patience. If it starts to flare up down here, we'll commit a bucket to that to slow it down. Keep it calm. Keep it going. When the fire hit this road and we really did not want it to cross the road, we put all of our air assets on that road so that we could do that. So where they go depends on what the fire needs at the time. Just FYI, there's a thing up in the air we call air attack, and it's a fixed wing that orbits at about 10,000 feet, and it's up over the fire all the time. The aircraft are below it, and so the ground troops talk to air attack, the air troops talk to air attack, and he assigns them to the highest priority need. So it's like an airborne traffic controller and because part of it is you got helicopters that fly below 500 AGL, you got air tankers that are up here, but they drop down. We really got to keep those things separated, so we use an air attack to do that. So priorities on the ground dictate where the aircraft go. Air attack puts them in a runway system, so to speak, to get them where they need to be, and they go load and return.
1 second, and I want to just add one quick thing to that. As a PIO, I want to know that too, right? And there's nothing that you can't find on the web these days. So there's a site you can go called ADSB Exchange, and you can look at a map and you can see where all those planes are, and you can watch the entire dance that the chief was just talking about. So, yes. Okay, question.
First of all, thank you for all of your hard work. We really appreciate it. What can the homeowners and residents do to create a defensible perimeter around their homes should the fire ever get this far, and to have a best practice that we always do that no matter what happens?
So Lawrence Crane, that's part of my job, is to do that type of stuff. There's a couple of very good web pages. Firewise.org talks about the defensible space zones and those type things. Your local fire department, when they have time, when they're not fighting big fires like this one, can come out and give you some ideas. I would say I would be able to come out and help, but there's 2 foresters in my office for 8 counties. So, you know, there's a lot of information on the web pages. New Mexico Forestry Division has a great web page with lots of information on it. different things you can do for the zone defense and type stuff. Normally, there is funding available. There's non-federal lands funding, wild and urban interface funding, and landscape scale restoration funding. Your local cooperators, like your SWCD for the area, would have to apply for those money, and then you could apply to them to put the money on the ground, and it's usually a cost share of some sort. So if they apply for the money, they can have funds available to help you pay to do that work. SWCD, Soil and Water Conservation District. Currently, Cuba has one for the Jemez area. It doesn't quite come over this far though. But the grant cycle's there. Andrew knows about it, and a bunch of people in Sandoval County know about it as well. Does that answer your question? Okay. Come see me afterwards. I'll answer some more. Sure.
Yeah. Is this on? Yeah. Do your aircraft all get their water from Cochiti Lake, or are there other sources around here?
So the question was, do all our aircraft get their water from Cochiti Lake? No. The scoopers, yes. Because the scoopers are the airplanes that come in and fly along the lake and suck up the water and pick it up. It's really efficient. You don't have to land and fill them from a tanker or a hydrant. So they get really rapid, what we call turnaround times. The shorter you can make a turnaround time, the better off it is, right? Because you get more water on the fire. But our other aircraft, like the helicopters, the buckets, they have many more water sources than Cochiti Lake. And it's a long way from Cochiti Lake down here up to here. So they're getting it off the caldera, they're getting it anywhere. Helicopter pilots are amazing guys. If you don't keep an eye on them, they'll steal your pool, right? At least I can tell you they'll put it to good use, right? So if it's not locked down, they will go get it if it's the closest water source that they got. The other ones, the one that dropped the retardant, they have to land at an air tanker base and get refilled from the ground. So their turnaround times are quite a bit longer than the other ones. So every water source we can get, we use. The closer the better, and scoopers are kind of defined to lakes.
Yes. This is not so much a question, but I think it is important. I haven't heard that much of it happening here. But ladies and gentlemen, we got to keep these drones out of the skies, or it hinders our planes and helicopters trying to attack these fires.
That is a perfect segue into a message that we put out there. People should know with drones, and if you have an older drone, it may try to fly within a temporary flight restriction area. That's an area that normal flight has been cut off, and that is what's going on above our fire here. Anytime we have an incident like this and we're flying, they establish a temporary flight restriction over that. Now, if we see somebody with a drone, and in this incident we have seen one drone, but it turned out to be just outside, we have to shut down our air ops. And if we shut down our air ops, the fire grows, and houses may burn, or people may lose their lives. So people need to realize the seriousness of trying to fly a drone, and I thank you for bringing that up. It's illegal to do it. Okay?
So you've talked about chemical retardants. What is the nature of the chemical retardants? In other words, what are the chemicals that go into those chemical retardants?
Chemistry quiz? I don't know the exact answer, but they try really hard. There's two main elements that go into them. It's phosphorus and potassium, right? Which are the same kind of stuff you use on your lawn. Then they put in some dyes and it's like a thickening agent, right? Because it's a little bit heavier than water, because you want it to fall, you want it to hit the ground. The red is so you can see where it's been. The chemicals in them are not toxic. Some people will argue with that, right? They're not, but they're toxic enough that we have to avoid things with them, right? So one of the things, we are not allowed to drop retardant within 300 feet of a water source. Unless it's your pool in the back of your house, we might hit that. But so 300 feet. So because we have retardant avoidance areas, that should tell you that not everything in there is completely benign and good and healthy in the long term, right? But the stuff is approved for use in the wildland. So we're using it according to the label on the package, right? That doesn't mean it's good. It doesn't necessarily mean it's bad, but it means that it's something we have to be extremely careful with out there. I mentioned earlier on the scoopers, right? We use them on the most sensitive cultural lands because we don't want retardant on those. Those are retardant avoidant areas. We don't want it in the rivers. We try to minimize where we use it because even though it's not toxic, it's not great. We'd rather not have to do it, but it does work. It's highly effective. So we try to find the balance between using it and not using it because of the stuff that is in it. But it's mostly benign, but like I said, there are a lot of people that will argue with that. And that's one of those balance issues. We use it as it's authorized to be used and try to avoid as many areas with it as we can.
Take one back here, Rich.
Okay, I'm driving in this afternoon and I see the fire spreading southward in that direction, and I'm wondering, is the Forest Service going to use this fire as an excuse to burn the area down in that direction to mitigate future fires?
I'll start if I need.
Yeah, I was going to say you start now.
So, in reference to management fires or fires that the Forest Service or other agencies use to meet management objectives like prescribed burns, there's a very small window. And those are we can only use those in natural type fires. Since the investigation is being conducted and we don't know the cause of this fire, and basically don't know if this was a lightning fire or some other cause, it's more than likely not going to be used as a management fire, especially with conditions. Again, those conditions for those fires have to be perfect, and we're not in those conditions right now. So I think I can speak for these gentlemen where we're not going to turn this into a big prescribed burn. We're going to let it do what it needs to do so that we can engage it safely, but we're not going to put fire down unnecessarily or in a prescribed fashion. Just to add to that, under these conditions, we would never do a managed burn or a prescribed burn. But what you're seeing, because I saw it too when I drove over here from Jemez, is this section right in here that's slowly backing down. They're bringing it down to Road 266 because there's no other line. If they want to get black line on that fire, they have to bring it down to 260. So they're letting it burn slowly at a low intensity for the most part down to 266. That's what you were seeing, but definitely not a managed burn. Thank you.
All right, we are right at the hour point. We do have time maybe for another question. Is there anybody that has one last question? Okay. Here comes Pete.
He's as fast as he is pretty. Wouldn't you agree? Or let's say maybe he's prettier than he is fast. Sorry about that. Anyway, I have a question about the aircraft. Could you tell us a little about the smaller helicopters? They seem to be different colors and they seem to have different lengths of cable going to their buckets. That's one thing. And the other related question is, I noticed those big helicopters, presumably they're all the Chinooks, had long cables and buckets for a while, and then all of a sudden the buckets disappeared, and I thought, oh no, they fell off. But then we found out that they have something like a straw. But I mean, that's the way I would guess. Maybe you can talk about these different kinds of things and what they're called.
Thank you.
Well, I can address the dark colored ones with the orange bands on the end of them. Those are our Air National Guard Black Hawk helicopters. I believe it's Lobo 59 and Lobo 31. They're using a short bucket because that's what they're most skilled at. They don't get to do this all the time like the other helicopters do. So some of the Type 1 helicopters can either use a big bucket with a big long line, or some of them have snorkels is what we call them. And they land that helicopter, that snorkel in the water, they suck up the water and then fly off, and then there's doors that open that drop the water. So those are the two types that they have. So if you see a big bucket hauling from underneath it, and then there's different sizes of helicopters. There's Type 1, Type 2, Type 3, and all that means is how much water they can hold. Okay? But the dark green ones that you see flying with the red band on the tail, that's your your State National Guard flying those helicopters. Okay? Does that help? Okay.
All right, so we're going to go ahead and end the meeting now. I want to thank you all for being here, and once again for your questions, for your involvement in your community. And I want to thank Pete for setting this all up today, because I started day in Los Alamos, and he had the bulletin boards, the maps, and everything ready to go. He did a fantastic job today. We will do further meetings as needed. Keep an eye on our official information sources to get the announcement for those meetings. And we just want to wish you all just the best through this. We realize it can be a very stressful time. Not knowing we're in a really good spot right now, but things turn around. So please feel free to reach out if you have any questions. This meeting ending doesn't mean that the time to ask question has ended. You can reach us at the website 2022.cerropelado@firenet.gov, and that email address is on every one of the sites that we put information on. So reach out to us. If you have a question, feel free to ask us. Our speakers will be available following the meeting if you have specific questions on the maps. Just thank you for being here, and everybody be safe. Thank you.
Folks, there is some information on the tables that you didn't all get on the way in. The air quality specialist has some information about smoke, and there's some information about the Ready, Set, Go. So feel free to stop by the tables again on your way out.